The radar sweep was clean. Too clean. 4 jets had launched. Silent Eagles. Same altitude. Same vector. Same confidence. They flew fast, locked on autopilot, trusted the numbers, but the numbers were wrong. Behind them, the 4th jet drifted wide. Not out of sync. Out of step. She flew manual. No chatter, no shortcuts. The others chased ghosts. She saw the pattern. One flicker, one shift, it wasn't a drill. She adjusted trim, cut back throttle, watched the sky bend. And when the threat turned real, only her eagle was close enough to stop it. The scramble alarm split the stillness like a blade. 1 sharp burst, then 2 in quick succession. Floodlights snapped on across the eastern apron of Sentinel Ridge, casting long shadows under rows of low-slung hangars. Within seconds, crews poured onto the tarmac, boots hitting concrete in a cadence that erased whatever quiet the morning had tried to hold. At Bay 7, the first jet prepped fast. Thorne's crew moved like clockwork, lifting panel covers, checking wing seams, sliding under the fuselage to confirm turbine alignment. His name was stenciled just under the canopy, sharp white on matte black. His helmet, already buckled under one arm, was covered in a patchwork of insignia from past flights. Someone slapped his shoulder as he passed. Another tossed him a fresh visor. He laughed as he climbed the ladder, the sound clean and unbothered. His flight suit bore custom stitching and compression plating that made him look like he was built for the aircraft, not the other way around. Next to him, Silva jogged toward his own bay, trading fast banter with a mechanic running diagnostics. His aircraft gleamed, not because it was new, none of the Silent Eagles were, but because his crew had polished it that morning on a hunch. Wyatt was third. He moved slower, looser, but just as confident. His suit had the zip line of a tech pilot. Sleeves rolled just slightly. One of his team tossed him a joke about topping Thorne's reaction time. He grinned and replied without looking back. Farther down the row, at Bay 12, no crew moved, no chatter, no clipped radio check-ins or ritual salutes. Calla March walked alone across the open lot, helmet in one hand, gloves already pulled halfway on. Her suit was regulation issue gray, smooth, no insignia beyond her last name. The fabric showed signs of age at the knees and collar. Her boots had been relaced with fresh cord that didn't match. She walked without rush, without drag, every motion efficient but quiet. Her jet waited, identical in shape and strength to the others, but streaked at the flanks where dust had settled from yesterday's rotor wash. No one had wiped it down. No one had double-checked the optics. It didn't matter. She had already done that herself. She reached the ladder and paused. Her gloves, patched and hand-stitched near the cuff, shifted slightly as she adjusted her grip. The left seam had been rethreaded 3 days ago. The right still carried the faint mark of burn tape. She didn't hesitate. She climbed, slow and steady, and slid into the cockpit with the ease of someone who didn't need to announce arrival. Thorne's voice echoed from the comms strip between bays. 4 slots up. That last one filler. He was half laughing. Silva responded without looking. Just keep her in trail. Looks like she drew the spare frame. There was no heat in it. No insult sharp enough to provoke. Just the casual erosion of presence. Wyatt chuckled once, then dropped into his seat and went quiet. Calla said nothing. Her visor came down with a single pull. She tapped through her startup sequence, fingers moving clean across the toggles. One by one, her systems lit green, radar sync, ECM arm, thermal balance. She didn't skip any steps. She never did. She didn't ask for confirmation because she didn't need it. Her F-15 Silent Eagle was technically the same as the others. Twin-engine, low observable, high-agility interceptor with internal bays and vertical stabilizer cant. But hers bore no decals, no customized HUD, just a flight card clipped under the glare shield and a manual pressure altimeter dial. She checked twice before pushback. Around her, engines began to spool. Thorne's canopy sealed first, then Silva's. Wyatt's ground crew cleared the pad. Kala's remained empty. No one came to wave her out. The line chief hadn't even walked her direction. The taxi order came over base radio. 4 aircraft. Intercept pattern vector 8. High priority. Unidentified contact moving fast near border airspace. Thorne's voice came through first. 3 ready. 2 standing. Lead locked. Kala pressed her mic toggle. 4 live. Systems green. There was a pause. Then, from the tower, a clipped acknowledgement. Confirmed. All assets cleared. Scramble approved. Vector 8 now hot. Jet wash shimmered across the tarmac as the first 3 F-15s rolled forward, wheels kicking up loose gravel and exhaust haze. The painted lines blurred under the tremble of heat. Their canopies gleamed briefly in the rising light. Kala eased her throttle open. Her Eagle rolled into movement, the vibration smooth, the brakes precise. She felt the aircraft respond not like a tool, but like a partner rising from sleep. There was no chatter now, no jokes. As the 4 jets aligned and began to taxi toward the active runway, the base fell quieter than expected. Only the engines remained, humming like a distant current, steady and deep. The 3 lead pilots focused forward, already lining up to launch. Kala stayed exactly where she was meant to be, 4th in line, final in sequence. But fully awake, fully aligned, and already watching the sky. The sky leveled out at 36,000 feet, clean and cold, the horizon drawn sharp between the pale arc above and the slate terrain below. 4 F-15 Silent Eagles cut through that space with uniform motion, afterburners throttled down to maintain stealth configuration, engines humming just low enough to be missed by ground-level radar. From a distance, they could have been shadows or mirages, flickers at the edge of a contrail that never fully formed. Kala March held her position in trail, rear right quadrant of the diamond. Her eyes tracked the lead jet ahead, Thorne, steady and direct, and the 2 flanking jets that spread out just enough to leave her with a clear view of the whole pattern. It was clean. Too clean. Her hands stayed light on the throttle, barely correcting. Her feet settled with deliberate stillness on the pedals. Her posture didn't shift. Her jaw didn't clench. But something inside her had already tilted forward. From the open channel came Thorne's voice, tight and clipped, contact echo, still drifting. You see it shift to 3-7. Silva answered before she could key in. Negative. Looks stable. Prob just scatter off the hills. Wyatt chuckled through static. Probably another weather drone. These things scramble over shadows if you let them. Kala didn't speak. She tapped through her left MFD screen, narrowing the cone of her passive IRS. The image returned blurry at first, too soft to read properly, but there it was again. The echo drifted. Not fast, not erratic, but just off the margin of expected deviation. A half beat behind where it should have been. Enough to be noise, unless you knew how timing degraded under certain humidity shifts. She rotated the radar cone 5 degrees off axis, not enough to trigger a system alert. Her HUD stayed quiet, but she saw the drift double. 1 second, the echo dragged left. The next, it dropped low enough to lose lock. Then it returned. Not a system glitch. Not an error. A shape, playing against the edges of visibility. Kala keyed the mic. Echo not tracking true. Recommend vector slow for second read. There was a pause. Thorne replied. Voice calm. Copy that. 4. But your trace is likely sensor lag. We're seeing clean on 3. Continue intercept. Wyatt added. Probably clipped a rock outcrop on the pass. Happens all the time. Silva chimed in again. Echo's cold. Kala. It's a sleeper bird. Chill. Kala didn't argue. She toggled to manual gain and adjusted the sensor blend herself. The others were writing system defaults. She didn't. Not when margins mattered. Her HUD flickered once, then leveled. She had stripped away the visual overlays most pilots preferred. Her cockpit looked empty to someone else. No altitude tapes, no waypoint blooms, no threat rings, just raw numbers, elevation arc, and velocity vector on center screen. The translucent strip of tape at the bottom edge stayed in place. Her own elevation correction formula was still legible in black pen, smudged where her thumb had pressed it last night. The others were still talking, jokes about ice ghosts and bored analysts back at base who probably flagged a migrating gull. Calla tuned them down without muting. She listened, but only to confirm what they weren't seeing. Outside, the light shifted subtly as their flight path angled toward the foothills. The air took on that specific blue-white hue that came just before snowfall. Dry, brittle, but bright. Far below, the terrain rippled in jagged contrast, black pine lines crossing pale rock. Between those ridges, the signal disappeared again, then came back, off by a new vector now, a pattern within the inconsistency. She slowed by 3% throttle, just enough to fall a few car lengths back from the diamond, not enough to draw notice. Her engines adjusted smoothly, and the motion of her aircraft softened. She ran the numbers again in her head. That echo was moving to the rhythm of something aware. It wasn't searching. It was watching. Her pulse didn't rise. Her breathing stayed even. She checked her cabin pressure dial. A decimal off. She adjusted it manually. The difference would have been invisible to the rest of the team, but it gave her a sharper return on engine thermal shift. Thorne's voice returned. All craft prep for turn. Signal point vector now 200. Standard intercept range. Calla tapped her data feed and refreshed the thermal outline. It showed a heat bloom rising just slightly higher than surface ambient. No spike, no signature, but enough to suggest intelligence. A drone flying active recon wouldn't ghost in and out. It would hold path or retreat. This one mirrored. She keyed in again. Echo update. Still showing reactive drift. Recommend elevation split to confirm pattern. Wyatt's response came first. It's a weather phantom. March. Come back in line. Silva added. We're cleared to close. Not dance a figure 8. Stay clean. Calla said nothing. She shifted her heading by 4 degrees and dropped 50 feet in altitude. The move wasn't logged as a deviation. Not yet. But her screen cleared. The signature she was tracking shifted again, this time toward her. The others missed it. Their cone was too wide. Their sensors were built to catch threats head-on. She was watching the side vector, the place the auto systems ignored to save power. The echo shivered. Not a glitch. A response, as if the object had flinched at her attention. She dialed her radar gain to manual and pulled her aircraft just 1 meter lower. The return smoothed. Now she could see it clearly. Not the object, but the air around it. How the signal bent. How the wind tunneled strange just beneath the echo. It was real. And it was aware. The others tightened formation. Thorne called for synchronized closure. Calla stayed where she was. She didn't fall back. But she didn't rejoin either. Her eagle held an angle-off pattern, tucked just behind the trail wake of Silva's jet, but aligned with the drifting shape no one else could see. In her headset, silence. The others flew on, trusting the mission, trusting the system. She adjusted the trim tabs by feel and steadied the horizon line with the palm of her hand. She was no longer flying formation. She was flying alone. The drone shifted again, not in a way the radar would flag, not enough for a computer to scream contact, but it moved, just a breath to the left, as if dragged by wind that did not exist. Calla March watched the vector skew on her secondary panel and knew, without doubt, that it was not natural. No echo drifted like that. No atmospheric refraction bled that clean across heading. It was alive, and it was listening. She adjusted her trim tabs again, just a tap with her ring finger, sliding the pitch downward by 1/2 degree. Her flight card paper, hand-notched, taped beside the throttle quadrant, fluttered slightly from the vent draw. On it, a set of curves traced intercept probabilities she had mocked up after a late-night sim run 3 days earlier. One line was red, a rough triangle she'd marked with a question mark in the margin. That shape now matched what she was watching on her HUD. Not theory anymore. Pattern. Her right boot rolled gently against the rudder. She edged her Silent Eagle 3 meters left, then 4, adjusting the radar cone not through presets, but by sliding the manual angle grip until the waveform stopped twitching. The object, still unnamed, still not locked, settled into clarity. It was not running. It was matching them. Perfectly. "Lead. This is 4, she said. Her voice was even, with no strain. Echo is not degrading. It's mirroring. Passive intercept pattern. Recommend we reclassify." There was a delay. Then Thorne replied, "We show no signature shift. Pattern looks benign. Hold formation. March." Wyatt chimed in, "Unless it grows wings and waves, it's not ours to worry about." Silva laughed quietly over the comm. "It's a ghost. Kala. Let it pass through." She didn't respond. Her left hand moved from the throttle to the radar gain, adjusting one final notch down. The systems didn't like it. Her lock tone blinked yellow, unable to find purchase. But she didn't need it. She had it visually now. The shimmer came first, just beyond the glass, in the airspace where her forward sensors were quiet. The light bent in a way that no cloud should bend it, as if heat were rolling off an invisible surface. She closed the distance by 300 meters. No flare, no warning, just motion. Then a shape, flat-bodied, low profile, blacked along the spine and wing stubs. The drone flew like it had learned from human pilots, not just maneuvered red behavior. Its angle of attack mirrored hers, its slight yaw drift timed with Thorne's turn call. It wasn't in their path. It was running their path behind them, like a shadow. Kala's Eagle glided closer. The stealth profile of her aircraft meant the drone likely hadn't flagged her yet. She flew parallel now, 200 meters off, altitude matched, heat signature suppressed. The drone didn't react. Not yet. But the air changed. She could feel the pressure bubble tighten between them, a soft resistance, as if the sky itself wanted her to turn away. Her hands never shook. Her jaw remained relaxed. The edges of her helmet pressed evenly against her temples, the chin strap pulling once with a slight lift of turbulence. She compensated without conscious effort. In the corner of her vision, the red question mark on her taped flight card shifted with the bank. It pointed toward the drone now, dead center. She let the moment hold. A second, then another. Below, the earth blurred in long shadows across the foothills. The light was beginning to shift toward late morning. The drone had not changed its path. Its velocity held at a deceptive glide, just beneath closure alert. It didn't want to be seen. But now, she was too close to ignore. She reached forward and dimmed her internal displays, one by one. HUD minimum, radar off, IRST to passive buffer. Her Eagle became a ghost beside a ghost. Then, the drone twitched. A hard left shift, barely a frame of motion, but she saw it. Not a drift, a correction. It had noticed her, or maybe not her, but the pressure change she had forced. Her presence had tipped the balance of its algorithm. It was reacting, not rerouting. No system glitch moved like that. Thorne's voice returned, almost bored. "Adjust heading." Echo dropped below threshold, returning to base pattern. Wyatt replied, "Looks like our morning mystery evaporated." Kala rolled slightly right to maintain position. Her fingers tapped twice on the side console. No specific command, just touch memory. Her HUD stayed quiet, but her breath caught. Only for a second. The drone banked again. This time, its belly turned briefly in her direction. Just a glimpse. Under its matte finish, a flicker of stabilizer correction flashed yellow. Internal gyros. Active thermal routing. Not a decoy. Not a sensor platform. This was a hunter. Kala exhaled once and drew her Eagle into its blind edge. The space where radar failed but instinct thrived. No lock tone. No warning. Just two aircraft sharing a corridor of air that should not have held both. Then it broke away. Not a retreat, not a full evasion. Just a slip sideways, back toward terrain shadow, out of intercept range. She had touched it without contact, forced it off pattern without firing a thing. It had seen her, and changed course. She leveled out, throttled back to formation speed, and resumed her vector. Behind her, Thorne and the others discussed debrief timings and fuel return metrics. No one asked what she had seen. The sky remained steady, but one shadow no longer followed. The drone shifted again, not away, toward, subtle as breath, smooth as a glider. It wasn't mimicking anymore. It was testing. Calla March saw the motion cut just ahead of Silva's vector, not enough to be flagged by his onboard systems, but enough for her to see the pattern forming. It drifted not by accident, but with purpose. It was mapping them, not just where they flew, but how they reacted. Each minor change in its path was bait, a slow rehearsal of cause and effect. Calla stayed on its shoulder, tracking without targeting, floating in its wake just outside what most would call engagement range. The sky around them shimmered with heat distortion and turbine trace, but her eagle rode through it clean. Her radar remained off, her visual cone locked wide. She studied the rhythm like music. 200 meters out, the drone corrected again, rolling 5 degrees toward Thorne's altitude band. Its thermal red slipped under the ambient wind layer, smart, low signature, no edge sharp enough to trigger a spike. But the direction was deliberate. Not a surveillance glide, a flanking rehearsal. She moved before it could finish. Her throttle surged smoothly. No jerk, no pitch wobble. She dropped down and behind, arcing across the lower hemisphere where the drone's rear angle was weakest. The F-15 Silent Eagle didn't scream forward. It slid dark, controlled, precise. Her angle mirrored the drone's stabilizer axis. The gap between them narrowed. She stayed out of its wake, but within its gravity. The air between them turned glassy. Turbulence flattened. The drone adjusted again, now clearly reacting. It dipped and climbed, then paused in level flight for a moment too long. A processing delay. It was trying to classify her. It couldn't. Her aircraft's reduced radar signature gave her the edge. It couldn't track what it couldn't confirm. So, it hesitated. That gave her the opening. She rolled left, then cut back with a shallow slice under the drone's tail. Her aircraft's shadow passed across the lower fuselage, a dark flicker across metal that shouldn't have noticed. But it did. The drone flinched. It turned sharply, banking away from her, exposing its full underside to open sky. The first ping hit the others. What the hell was that? Thorne's voice cut through the radio. We just logged a bounce off something mid-pattern. Anyone else see it? Wyatt replied fast. Negative lock, but I got a pulse echo. Might have been mine. Or Silva's. I don't know. Silva muttered. That wasn't in my sweep. Something just blinked. Calla said nothing. She watched the drone stutter once, then fall back into level flight, now angled away from Silva's cone and drifting low. It had broken its mirror, abandoned the simulation. It knew she was too close. She dipped her flaps by hand and stayed on its edge, not chasing, herding. From her altitude, the curvature of the world pressed wide against the canopy. Snow-lined peaks stitched the horizon. Below, the terrain turned jagged, full of valleys and sudden wind shear. A bad place to fly. But the drone had chosen it. Calla let it go. She followed just enough to confirm direction, not enough to engage. The radio stayed busy with minor confusion. Thorne, check your returns. Did you get a signature update? I've got residual noise. Nothing solid. Check left quadrant. 4. You tracking anything? She keyed her mic once, not to speak, just to mark presence. They went quiet. It didn't last. Calla scanned her instruments again. The drone had dropped below their formation layer, now skimming the slope line as it retreated. She didn't pursue. That wasn't the mission. Her F-15 held position, angled against the wind, coasting steady in the echo of where the threat had been. There had been no missile, no tone, no order, just angles and shadows, geometry, not aggression. The drone was gone. No radar logs would explain why. No flight recorder would note her path as critical, but it had changed its mission because of her. That was enough. She pulled back slightly and resumed her previous heading, nudging her trim tabs to bring her back into range of Thorne's flight arc. Her heart rate had not changed. Her breath was still even. In the cockpit, the light shifted as cloud cover broke above, scattering a dull glow across the panels. Her gloves gripped lightly. Her shadow had passed across the enemy once. That was all it took. On the open channel, Thorne spoke again. Looks like ghost contact broke off. All units resume standard intercept path. No further anomalies. Return to base vector and await call-in. Silva replied, "Copy. Looks clear." Wyatt added, "Guess the bird got bored." Kala listened. She didn't correct them. She didn't need to. Far ahead, their jets straightened. Fuel checks began. Formation drift closed. She stayed behind, quiet, exact, unread. The sky no longer held the threat, and no one had seen it go but her. The sun had risen high enough to burn off most of the cloud cover by the time the first jet returned. Thorne's wheels hit the runway with a clean, low-bounce touch. His brake deployment came early. Textbook perfect, and within seconds his canopy lifted. Ground crew rolled forward with practiced rhythm, guiding him into place with illuminated batons. As he taxied off the main line, his wingman Silva followed. Then came Wyatt, slower and slightly off-angle, but smooth all the same. Kala March waited her turn. She kept her altitude even, her throttle low. The control tower voice came through calm and clear, vectoring her in behind the others. Her descent was quiet. The crosswind had picked up slightly, but she compensated by touch alone, trimming gently with her left hand while her right pulled the Eagle into final alignment. Her wheels kissed the runway last. Her spoilers lifted a second later, and she let the aircraft coast to a steady crawl before guiding it toward Bay 12. No one waited at the edge of the tarmac. Her engines spooled down in layers. First the low whine, then the heavier pulse, then silence. She sat for a few seconds longer, her hand still resting on the throttle, before flipping her final switches. Her canopy slid open with a soft hiss. The heat inside the cockpit rushed upward and vanished. She unbuckled without a word, pulled off her gloves, and lifted her helmet free. The inside of it was still faintly warm, not from sunlight, but from the flight itself. The trace heat from that moment when she had flown too close to the drone to be ignored still lingered inside the lining. She carried it in the crook of her arm as she climbed down the ladder. To her left, Thorne stood beside his aircraft, already in conversation with a mission tech. Silva and Wyatt had peeled off toward the command tent, gesturing toward a shared data pad. One of them laughed. Someone else clapped a hand on a shoulder. Kala walked past without pause. Her boots met the tarmac cleanly, the sound muted by the layered exhaust haze still rising from the bays. She passed a line of crew members checking fuel lines, none of whom looked up. At the edge of the support station, a young technician leaned toward a telemetry monitor. Scanning returns from the morning flight. He paused, rewound, then glanced toward her. She didn't break stride. One of her fuselage logs had flagged a maneuver at timestamp 0829. No corresponding system call, no countermeasure, just a shape change, logged manually. An anomaly. But no one said anything. No questions. No pull aside. Her flight card still hung beside the throttle inside her jet, fluttering slightly in the residual breeze from the cooling system. The red question mark scrawled at the center was now a map point, but she left it taped in place. The gear weighed more now. Her helmet pulled slightly against her arm. Her gloves, still damp with sweat at the inner seam, shifted when she flexed her fingers. She thought about taking a detour through the refuel station, just to clear her path from the cluster forming near the mission debrief tent. She didn't. As she passed the entrance to the briefing hall, she could hear Thorne's voice through the half-open panel. "We got some weird returns around 8:20. Might have been a transient ghost, or bleed-through off the hillside. Could be nothing." Silva replied, "March might have caught it early. She was flying long vector behind us." Wyatt gave a soft laugh. "She always flies long vector. Probably saw her own shadow." The room chuckled. No malice, just distance. Easy confidence. Kala kept walking. The sun had climbed higher now, pressing down over the flight line with that dry midday weight. Heat shimmered across the far edge of the tarmac. Her bay was mostly quiet again. her aircraft standing still with only a faint tick from the metal cooling under pressure. She sat down just outside the hangar lip, back against the concrete wall, her helmet resting beside her hip. Her gloves sat on her knees, fingers curled slightly. She leaned forward with her elbows on her thighs and watched the sky above the line of trees, past the airfield. It was empty now. Quiet. The others were still talking. She didn't need to hear it. She had turned the sky by 1/2 degree, and no one had noticed. That, too, was part of the work. The screen in the mission review room played on a silent loop. No sound, no commentary, just the radar trace, mapped in slow replay, overlaid with altitude bands and telemetry streaks. 4 arcs curved across the grid, 3 in near symmetry, fading into safe vectors. 1 lower, sharper, broke pattern. The pause frame held for a moment longer than usual. In the still image, her jet sat at the intercept angle, nose pointed at the point of divergence. The others trailed behind, their traces misaligned. No one said anything. Thorne leaned forward, elbows on knees. Silva scratched his chin. Wyatt didn't look up. The file name in the corner read, Vector Intercept Record, Priority Flag. Underneath that, a line in bold text marked the contact, March, C, First Contact Vector. Outside, the sky remained quiet. Morning sun rose in a clean line across the airfield, casting long, even shadows across the maintenance rows. Calla March stood near the underwing panel of her Silent Eagle, tightening a seal clamp with a socket wrench. Her sleeves were rolled. Her gloves were patched. The red thread she'd used to repair the inner seams was visible now, stitched with clean, even tension. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't turn until the crew chief stopped beside her. He said nothing, just held out a folded page, hard copy, uncreased, except for 1 neat line down the center. She took it, nodded once, and glanced at the header. It was a printout of the confirmed telemetry breakdown, no summary, no notes, just position logs and time-stamped echoes. Her name appeared 4 times on the first page, 2 of them bolded. She folded it in half again and slid it into her flight pocket. The wrench turned once more, locked, and clicked. Later that day, as she moved between hangars for a new systems check, she passed the side of the command building where the daily readiness roster was mounted. The digital panel refreshed every 90 seconds. This time, when it cycled, her call sign appeared under tactical priority flyers. Second on the list, no announcement, no ceremony, just a shift in status. She didn't pause. She didn't take a second look. Her pace didn't change. As she crossed the tarmac, Thorne passed in the opposite direction. His helmet was under his arm. His gait was slower than usual. For a second, their eyes met. He didn't stop. He didn't speak. But his chin dipped once, half nod, half recognition. Then he walked on. She made no reply. The sun had reached its peak by the time she returned to her aircraft. Her gloves were dry now. The red thread still held. The wind tugged gently at her collar. Behind her, the flight line hummed with the low rhythm of ordinary motion. But the space around her felt quieter, not empty, just clearer. Inside the mission archive, the day's log file closed with a new entry. March, C, Vector Intercept. Verified pattern divergence, confirmed no escort required. There was no commendation, no file note added, just the name, the date, and the outcome. Calla March checked her altimeter for the second time that afternoon, and kept herself ready. Not every act of strength comes with applause. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room sees what no one else does. Calla March didn't speak louder. She didn't push for credit. She simply flew with purpose when it mattered most. In a sky full of identical aircraft, hers was the only one that changed the outcome. That's what this story asks us to remember. That self-worth is not granted by recognition. It's proven in the moment no one else is watching. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the power of being ready, even when overlooked. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories about quiet strength, resilience, and the kind of courage that goes unnoticed until the world catches up, follow along. There's more to tell.